Yes, please proceed.
प्रस्तुत है वेव्स कुलगीत।
वेदाध्ययन है लक्ष्य हमारा, वेदाध्ययन है लक्ष्य हमारा।
है माध्यम जिसका न्यारा,
वेदाध्ययन है लक्ष्य हमारा। अपरा से जीवन निखार कर परा से पाए अक्षर ज्ञान।
अपरा से जीवन निखार कर परा से पाए अक्षर ज्ञान।
सत्यम शिवम सुंदरम के हम सिद्ध कर पाए सब वरदान। यही परम उद्देश्य हमारा, वेदाध्ययन है लक्ष्य हमारा।
वेव से दे रहा बोध तरंगी, वेव से दे रहा बोध तरंगी। भारत की विद्या पहचाने,
वेद पुराणों स्मृति ग्रंथों में निहित अमूल्य सार हम जाने। तत्व ज्ञान ही बोध्य हमारा, वेदाध्ययन है लक्ष्य हमारा। दशकों से है वेव्स दे रहा अवसर चर्चा का, चिंतन का।
दशकों से है वेव्स दे रहा अवसर चर्चा का, चिंतन का।
एक मंच पर सबको लाना ध्येय रहा हर सम्मेलन का। वैश्विक हित कर्तव्य हमारा, वेदाध्ययन है लक्ष्य हमारा।
ऋतं भरा प्रज्ञा से उतरूं, ऋतं भरा प्रज्ञा से उतरूं। भ्रमजालों से दूर बचे हम,
स्वस्थि भाव पूरित जीवन हो, अनृत मार्ग से दूर रहे हम। आनंद गंतव्य हमारा, वेदाध्ययन है लक्ष्य हमारा।
वेव्स है माध्यम जिसका न्यारा,
वेदाध्ययन है, वेदाध्ययन है, वेदाध्ययन है लक्ष्य हमारा।
Thank you, Aparna ji. Namo Namah Sarvebhyah. You are all are welcome in this Waves webinar series 2026, talk number 24. Samani va akutihi samana hridayani vah samanamastu vo mano yatha vah susahasati. This is the mantra from Rig Veda. And when we talk about Vedas, when we talk about scriptures, when we talk about Mahabharata, Ramayana, and when we talk about Sanskrit literature, everywhere we find that there are many aspects, many scriptures, many talks, and many concepts behind all these things. And now we are going to take a new thing about the Mahabharata. Mahabharata is very famous scriptures of for not only for Indians, for all over the world. And this Mahabharata says many things. So said by Vedavyasa, Yadi hasti tadanyatra yanne hasti ratat kvachit. Whatever you can find in Mahabharata, you can find everywhere. But whatever is not in Mahabharata, you can't find that in anywhere. So this type of Mahabharata is there. Today we are organizing a webinar. Webinar is organized by World Association for Vedic Studies Waves USA and wider Association for Vedic Studies Waves India. So first of all, I would like to introduce these both organizations. The World Association for Vedic Studies Waves International, a US based non profit academic organization incorporated in Atlanta, Georgia since 1996. Waves has served as a global platform for interdisciplinary research, dialogue, and dissemination of Indian knowledge systems, especially the Vedas, Ayurveda, and allied sciences. It has hosted 16 international biennial conferences in the USA and abroad. You can find more information about the Waves International to log on website www.worldassociationforvedicstudies.org. The other collaboration, the Waves India, the wider Association for Vedic Studies, a multidisciplinary registered academic society under the Societies Act 21 of 1860 in New Delhi. The association still maintains its acronym WAVES and is affiliated with the World Association for Vedic Studies USA. It recently organized its 29th annual conference in New Delhi in December 2025 at Miranda House. And you can find some more information to log on www.waves-india.com. So these both organizations are working all over the world for Vedic studies. And today we are organizing a webinar on dating of the Mahabharata war. But before I am going to welcome and I am going to invite our speaker, I would like to give a great opportunity to Waves India and Waves USA because we are celebrating our Waves Varshiki. We are going to release Waves Varshiki 2025. Whatever we have done in year 2025, that is, we are enabling in the Waves Varshiki 2025. So I would like to say, invite Umesh Kumar Singh ji to please release this Waves Varshiki as well as please tell something about this Waves Varshiki, what this Waves Varshiki is there and what we can find in this Waves Varshiki.
Thank you, Ashutosh ji. It's my privilege to formally announce the release of Waves Varsky 2025, the annual publication of World Association for Vedic Studies, which is known as Waves International. This volume represents a collective scholarly effort and brings together carefully curated academic articles, conference proceedings, and report from Waves webinars, which is going on now, and other activities conducted during this year. It reflects the intellectual diversity, methodological rigor, and continued vitality of research in Vedic and related studies within our global community. The Waves Varsky also serves an important archival purpose, documenting the academic contributions, dialogues, and collaborative initiatives undertaken under the Waves platform and making them available for future scholars and students. I would like to place on record our sincere appreciation for the editorial team, which includes Aparda and Supriya Chopra, and our general editor is Sasi Kejriwal ji. Uh, all those who worked behind the scenes to bring this publication to fruition, I would like to thank them. Access details for WAVES Varsity 2025 will be shared shortly, and I encourage all participants to read, reflect upon, and engage with its contents. With this announcement, let us now return to today's webinar and the scholarly discussion that brings us together this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Umesh Kumar Singh ji. And this newsletter we will get through the mail very shortly, and this newsletter will gives a great opportunity to join the and connect with the Waves community, and this Waves newsletter will be published every year, so we can find every year the all activities in a newsletter. So thank you the team, Dr. Aparna ji, Dr. Supriya ji, and Dr. Umesh Kumar Singh ji, to provide this opportunity to get the complete information through a newsletter. And I would like to get you all to this webinar, the main theme of this webinar. Today's the theme of webinar, the topic of the webinar is very vibrant topic, dating of the Mahabharata war. Mahabharat. This talk will present comprehensive literary, epigraphic, and traditional evidence obtained through the use of Saptarshi and Kaliyuk calendars. And this talk is coming through the very auspicious speaker, Shri Vedveer Aryaji. So, first of all, I welcome you, Vedveer Aryaji. And Shri Vedveer Aryaji is Additional Secretary and Financial Advisor, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, author and distinguished chronologist, historian, Sanskrit scholar, and senior civil servant. He has received the Dr. Radhakrishnan Memorial Gold Medal and the C.D. Deshmukh Memorial Gold Medal from Delhi University. In 2020, he published two books, The Chronology of India from Manu to Mahabharata and The Chronology of India from Mahabharata to Medieval Era in two volumes. In 2025, he published a two-volume book titled Chronology and Origins of Indo-European Civilization. And this today we are organizing a talk on dating of the Mahabharata war. So first of all, I welcome you, Shri Vedveer Aryaji, and something more about this talk. This talk will give immense knowledge of dating the Mahabharata war. The eclipse observations recorded in the Mahabharata provided primary evidence for establishing the absolute date of this significant event. The archaeoastronomical study of three eclipses and planetary positions indicates that the absolute date of the Mahabharata war can be established only as 3162 BCE, within a time frame of 2200 years from 3200 BCE to 1000 BCE. So, how it can be decided and how we can confirm that this dating is the real dating. And this topic really is very important to understand the history, because sometimes what happens that Mahabharata confirmed as a myth. That is not a myth, that is the history of India, and that is the reality of India. So if we can find the dating of Mahabharata war, the every myth will goes away from our mind, and we can find the proper history of Indian history, Indian background. So I am very thankful that this topic is going to tell or going to provide a great knowledge of dating of Mahabharata war. So I am very much thankful for your timing and for your suggestions for this topic. And the many more questions will be there after your talk. So I would like to suggest everyone, please give your questions by texting this mess in the message box, and you can ask your question after the completion of the main talk by Shri Vedvir Aryaji. So I am inviting you, sir, for giving your the great knowledge of dating the Mahabharata war.
Sabhayai Namaha. I would like to thank Waves USA and Waves India for inviting me for today delivering a talk on dating of Mahabharata. And especially the chronology is a problem since last 300 years. What happened prior to the British historians, whatever they started after 1784 onwards, after the creation of Asiatic Society of Bengal. Prior to that, there was no such any doubts about Indian chronology or Indian history. What happened after this? Because modern historical research, it started with the biblical mindset. Since the 4000 BC was a creation, 3000 BC is the civilization. So they started doubting every date which contradicts with the Bible. So they started first science revolution called archaeology. If you are claiming that your civilization is more ancient, then show me what is the archaeological evidence. So they actually expected us to present the material evidence. So this archaeology started, and till 1950s, when carbon dating was just started evolving. Prior to that, not a single archaeologist ever dated any site beyond 2000 BC. Why? Actually, their mindset was only limited to the 2000, 3000 BC maximum. Even though John Playfair, he and certain European astronomers, they studied Indian astrological charts, Indian astronomy. Then they say Indian charts are to be dated 4300 BC, but their claims have been rejected. Why? Just Bible mindset. So what happened? Bible mindset has been transformed into a scientific field, or you can say that 3000 BC as the only, if you're dating beyond that, you're not a scientist, or you're not an academician, you're only a mythologist, or these kinds of, this is how Indian history or Indian traditional dating has been rejected. Thereafter, when carbon dating came, they started dating, but they are unable to linkage with the tradition because we lost with the connection with the traditions. Then now the third science has evolved like archaeogenetics. But the problem is last 300 years, we are unable to establish archaeoastronomy as an integral science to establish the chronology. So that we are going to establish that Indian Sanskrit texts are consistent as far as astronomy is concerned. Only the problem is the methodology. If we correct the methodology, if we establish the standards, then archaeoastronomy is very good science through which we can establish the chronology, which actually incorporate other sciences also. So while going to I'll share my presentation to hope the presentation is visible. I will.
Yes, this is visible. Thank you.
Okay. Now, if you see that there are so much of divergence of opinion, all our astronomers are, I can say, all our academicians coming out with the different dates, more than 7, 8 dates or 9 dates I have listed out. The general someone who is looking at the science, what kind of a science it is. If you are using the science, but you are coming up with the so much difference of results, it means it's not a science. So there is a question mark on archaeoastronomical study of especially ancient Sanskrit text. It's not a science. It's only everybody interpreting as per his convenience. So this can't be accepted as a scientific study, which has to be an integral part of any chronological study. So due to what we have done last many years, and recently we had one Tithi Shastrartha in Delhi, we have consciously evolved a methodology. Whenever we are studying any Sanskrit text having an astronomical information, then we have to first establish the independent and absolute astronomical references like eclipses and planetary position. These two are very important because there is no ambiguity at all. Second, then calendar-based astronomical references. Thereafter, external, because one is the internal astronomy, second is the external astronomical evidences. Thereafter, we can have a literary and epigraphic evidences. What else we have? Then chronological continuity are the very, very important. You can't simply date some event in isolation. Then say there is a huge gap and you are unable to explain the chronological history from that date to the till modern times. Is also essential to any date if we are going to establish. And finally, other evidences like Saraswati, Vinashana, Indus Valley civilization, what is this, and then archaeological sites. So we are going to discuss all those issues. Now, this methodology we have translated into the ancient way of Shastrartha. We have evolved into 8 tests. One is the Grahana Pariksha, eclipse test, planetary position test, calendrical astronomy, external literary evidences, Saptarshi calendar, then epigraphy. What are the inscriptions? And because inscriptions are the original documents, those have been not rewritten or recopied. Then chronological continuity and others. So what I am going to claim it, I am not giving any date as per my study, something new. What I am going to examine our traditional date of Mahabharata date. And I am going to establish that traditional date of Mahabharata war is consistent with the all literary, epigraphic, internal and astronomical evidence also. And also I'm going to establish this is the only date that corroborates 99.9% of references, except one or two that also may be some kind of a scribble or copyist error probably. That we will discuss. First, let us have an eclipse test. The first solar eclipse reference, it comes when Pandavas are ready to go for exile or Vanavasa. आसीनिष्टानको घोरो निर्घातश्च महानभूत दिवोल्काश्चापतन घोरा राहुश्चार्कम upagrasat. So the day Pandavas left Hastinapura for Vanavasa, an eclipse took place. Naturally, because they have gone on Shukla Pratipada in the beginning of the month so that they can complete 13 years. The day they left Hastinapura, that day was Amavasya or day before Amavasya. On the day of Amavasya, the solar eclipse took place. Then they left on Pratipada or probably in the evening of the same day they left to Vanavasa. Then there is another reference in the Mahabharata, a pair of eclipses, lunar eclipse followed by solar eclipse. This order also important. Chaturdashi Panchadashim Bhutapurvam cha Shodashim Imam tu nabhijanami Amavasyam Trayodashim Surya Chandra Surya Vubhau Grasto Ekamase Trayodashim Aparvani Graha Veto. So it is talking about pair of eclipse, and pair of eclipses are also rare and both have to be visible in India also. That's why this becomes very strong evidence to establish any date of Mahabharata, irrespective of your all assumptions or calendrical related whatever issue. This pair of eclipse and visibility of both eclipses, and also it is talking about Trayodashi. Trayodashi means we need to interpret it as a elapsed tithi. elapsed Tritiya Tithi means before completion of Chaturdashi Tithi, solar eclipse took place. It means within 14 days. That is the criteria also for this pair of eclipse. And the third solar eclipse has been mentioned when 36th year has been, means in the 36th year starting from the Mahabharata year, Sri Krishna left this world. So before that, one solar eclipse has been observed in India. So now the pattern, the parameters, why I am saying suppose we'll consider 0 year as the Mahabharata war, then 13 to 14, less than 14 years you have to establish the solar eclipse. Why? Because when Sri Krishna was in Hastinapura for negotiations, the ambassador of Pandavas, when he was in Hastinapura, he met Kunti. Kunti was saying, Idam Chaturdasham Varsham Yanna Pashyam Yudhishtiram Dhananjayam Cha Govinda Yamau Tam Cha Vrikodaram. She is saying that this is the 14th year is running. Some translators actually did a blunder and they say 14 years have been elapsed. No, because Pandavas completed 13 years. Then they were in Viratanagara. They moved to Upaplavya. They started war preparation. Nobody is waiting for a year or more than a year so that they are not at the mercy of Duryodhana. They are actually giving both way. Either you agree or let's go for the war. So after 13 years of Vanavasa, they have not waited 1 year or 2 years to go for a war. Okay. So the internal evidence is clearly establishing that 14 years, less than 14 years is the criteria for establishing the solar eclipse when Pandavas left for Vanavasa. So let's have this one. I have from the 3162. If you go in the 3175 BC, on 25th February, there was a solar eclipse, and you can see the image. It is clearly visible, and this is based on the NASA eclipse data. There is because NASA gives only solar eclipse up to 2000 BC. Beyond that, it is not giving the images. So there is a torahcalendar.com website. It is actually a Jewish website. They are using the same NASA data and JPL horizons, and they are giving the images up to 3700 BC. So I used that software to create these images. So this image is clearly showing that there was a solar eclipse and it was visible in India on 20. That was a probably Falgun Amavasya or Chaitra Amavasya, closer to that, considering the Kshaya Masa or Adhika Masa during those times. Now this pair of eclipse, when you come to 3162 BCE, a lunar eclipse was visible in India as well as the solar eclipse. The pair of eclipse took place 7-8 years before the Mahabharata war. I'm saying October, somewhere in the January, this pair of eclipse was visible in India. And Trayodashi Tithi, if you start from the 21st 3163 BC Purnima, 22nd Pratipada Dvitiya, if you come with 4th January was the Chaturdashi. Chaturdashi not yet completed. That so this criteria also, it means this pair of eclipse meets that criteria, that Chandra Surya Vubhau Grasto Ekamase Trayodashi. Here Trayodashi means Trayodashi elapsed, because within 13 days it is impossible to have any solar eclipse at all. You need minimum 13 days, 21 hours or something for to have one paksha to be completed. Then this is the third solar eclipse that took place in the 35th year. You have to count Mahabharata era as the first year. Then you come to the 35th year, that is the 3128 BCE, 12th August 3128 BCE. A solar eclipse was visible in India. It is, I am just giving a data. S. Balakrishna of NASA, he attempted once to date Mahabharata using this less than 14 days criteria. He actually did how many pair of eclipses visible from 700 BC to 3300 BC. Then he collected 672 pair of eclipses. Then he shortlisted those only occurred closer to the India. Then how many are visible in Kurukshetra or Hastinapura? So he found only 6 such solar eclipses are visible, in which 3128 BCE, what I have mentioned, took place in the 35th year of the Mahabharata war. Then there are certain things. But if you see 2055, then 1852, 1707, 1396, all are actually solar eclipse followed by lunar eclipse, not lunar eclipse followed by solar eclipse. And he has calculated 13 days, 21 hours, 22 hours, 23 hours. So this is how less than 14 days is the criteria whenever we are going to check about any scientific data about this Trayodashi solar eclipse means less than 14 tithis. Just to say, if we consider 3136 BC, this is actually Jayashri Saranathan. If you see, a solar eclipse, what has been dated is not visible in India. It was visible in South America and Africa. Then the solar eclipse was, the pair of solar eclipse, lunar eclipse was visible, but solar eclipse was only visible at Russia somewhere. This is the Narahari Achar and Ji and then Manish Pandit, they generally date. Solar eclipse took place in 3080 BC, but it was more than 14 or 15 years. If we count for 3066, it would be more than 14 years. So it violates the time when Sri Krishna met Kunti, then she has to say idam panchadasham varsham, not idam chaturdasham varsham. Then if you see, the solar eclipse was visible only in Africa and somewhere near the America, not in India. This is Sri Ashok Bhatnagarji. He did a wonderful job while working on the various other aspects. But in the, especially the solar eclipse, when Pandavas left for Vanavasa, more than 15 years. It means Pandavas waited more than 2 years to have a war. So that's why it violates the criteria given. Idam chaturdasham varsham. Then second, if you see 20th April to 4th May, if you count the days, total 15 days, it means it is also cannot be less than 14 days. Even this 11th December 1758, there was a lunar eclipse on 27 December, more than 15 days. So both do not meet the criteria of less than 14 days also. And this is the R.N. Iyengar. He came up with this one, 1477 BCE. If you see, 1492 BCE was the solar eclipse. But he dates Mahabharata war 1477 BC. It means solar eclipse took place more than 15 years before. And as well as these eclipses do not comply with the that less than 14 days criteria also. The why this 14 days, less than 14 years is why so important. There are 3 shlokas in Udyoga Parva, Adhyaya 88. Chaturdasham imam varsham yanna pashyam arindama putradhibih paridyunam draupadim satyavadini. I think many are Sanskrit scholars. I am not going into translations. So it is even this what translation I am showing, it is actually Satvalekar, unka translation hai. यह 14वां वर्ष बीत रहा है. नस्म क्लेशतमं मे स्यात् पुत्रै सह परन्तप दुर्योधनेन निकृता वर्षमद्य चतुर्दशम्. इदं चतुर्दशं वर्षं यन्नापश्यं युधिष्ठिरं धनञ्जयं च गोविन्द यमौतं च विकोदरम्. So there is a crystal clarity here that Kunti is saying that this is the 14th year is running. So Mahabharata war took place less than 14 years, counting from the day Pandavas left for Vanavasa. Okay, so this way, if we take proper parameters and then we match all the 3, what I have done from 1000 BC to 3200 BC, there is the only one date, that is 3162 BC, matches all 3 eclipses perfectly, including less than 14 days criteria for the solar eclipse also. There is another reference in the Mahabharata, Somasya Lakshma Vyavrittam Rahur Arkam Upeshyati, a kind of a prediction. They have observed moon, then a prediction is there, probably a solar eclipse occur. Yes, after that an eclipse took place, but that was not visible in India. Since they are talking about Upeshyati, we cannot consider that there is an eclipse must happen in India and that should be visible. There is one more issue, especially the historians and as well as the archaeoastronomers generally have an impression that this shloka is referring to the lunar eclipse just before the Mahabharata war. I just request all of you to just follow the Sanskrit. Alakshya prabhaya hinaha paurnamasim cha kartikim. This was the Kartika Paurnamasi. The moon was prabhaya hinaha alakshya chandrobhud agnivarnascha samavarne nabhastale. Please understand samavarne nabhastale. It never happens if it is the penumbral eclipse. Nabhasthala cannot be samavarna. So the reference is actually harvest moon, because harvest moon occurs very close to autumnal equinox. That time autumnal equinox was somewhere 10th, 11th October 3162 BC. Second, due to other effect, it appears reddish and very dull, harvest moon. So the reference is harvest moon. It's not anything. If it was a lunar eclipse, there would have been a reference of Rahu or Grasa, some different, but it's not. It is the Chandrobhut Agnivarnaha Samavarne Nabhastale. So this is not in a reference to any lunar eclipse. It is actually in a harvest moon, because the Prabhaya Hinaha Alaksha. Otherwise, if it is an eclipse, naturally it should be covered. So there is no need to use those things, and as well as the reference to Samavarne Nabhastale may be irrational if it was a lunar eclipse. Now, let's move to the planetary positions. There is a reference to the retrograde motion of a Mars just before entering the Jyeshta Nakshatra. Kritva Changarako Vakram. Already Angaraka, Mars completed retrograde motion. Then Jyeshtayam Madhusudhana Anuradham Prarthayate Maitram Samshamayaniva Maitram Anuradha Nakshatra. Thereafter, Mahabharata says Vakranu Vakram Kritva. After completion of the retrograde motion, Shravane Pavaka Prabhaha Brahmarashim Samavritta Lohitango Vyavasthitaha. Just before the Mahabharata war date, Mars was sitting in Shravana Nakshatra in the Brahma Rashi. Brahma Rashi is either Makara Rashi or Cygnus constellation, in which the Shravana is a star of that particular Brahma Rashi. So it was Mars' position has to be in Shravana before the beginning of Mahabharata war, as well as it would have been completed a retrograde motion before Jyeshta Nakshatra, means somewhere Chitra, Swati, close to, even Jyeshta also no problem, that may be acceptable. Then another, if you see 7th August 3162 BC, just 2 to 3 months before the Mahabharata war, the Mars completed the retrograde motion. Then it was in Shravana Nakshatra. The 25th October 3162 BC is the date of Mahabharata. Exactly on the date, Mars was in Shravana Nakshatra. You can go and simulate whenever you want to do it. You can go to the stellarium, is freely available. I think anyone can go and simulate these issues. There was another reference, Shukraha Prosthapade Purve Samaruhya Vishamprate Uttaretu Parikramya Sahitaha Pratyudikshate. Pratyudikshate has been translated as, it is like that the Shukra, Venus, is ready to go on retrograde in Purva Bhadrapada, Prosthapade Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra, just after the Mahabharata war, because it has been a kind of a prediction that Venus is going to do retrograde motion in Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra. So it is exactly after Mahabharata, December and January 3162, 3161 BCE, the Venus did retrograde motion in Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra. Then there is another reference. Bhrigusunu Dharaputro Shashijena Samanvito Charamam Panduputranam Purastat Sarvabhubhujam. This is actually talking about a conjunction of Bhrigusunu, Dharaputra, Bhumiputra, Mangal, Bhrigusunu, Shukra, Venus and Mars were in conjunction. Shashijayana, Shashija comes Mercury, but there are some kind of a Patabhedas regarding this. So, but it is actually talking about 3-planet conjunction on 18th day of the Mahabharata war, 18th day. That was 11th November 3162 BCE. If you see, 3 planets are conjuncted: Saturn, Venus, and Mars. The Shashijena or Shaneshchara, this has to be. This is the one parameter, but even we ignore that. But at least Venus, Mars and Venus both were in conjunction on the 18th day of Mahabharata war, that is 11th November 3162 BC. If we take these 3 planetary position, 3 eclipses, let us see how the various claims can be established. If you see 3136 BCE, anyhow the solar eclipses were not visible. Mars was in Mula Nakshatra before the beginning of the Mahabharata war. If you see 1792, Mars was in Leo during the date of Mahabharata war in Simha Rashi, close to the, it was in Simha Rashi. 1472, 77, the R.N. Iyengar's claim, where Mars was in Jyeshtha Nakshatra before the beginning of Mahabharata war. Then there is a greater, especially the debates regarding this position of Saturn and Jupiter. The problem is there are numerous references which do give an impression to a beginner that there are contradictions. How? Occultation of Rohini by Saturn. Rohinim Pidayannesha Sthito Rajan Shaneshcharaha Prajapatyam cha Nakshatram Grahasthikshno Mahadyuti Shaneshcharaha Pidayati Pidayan Praninodhikam. This shloka is clearly mentioning that Rohini is occulting, Saturn is occulting the Rohini. Then Saturn, Jupiter, both were in Vishakha Nakshatra. Samvatsarasthayino Graho Prajwalitavubhau Vishakhayoha Samipastho Brihaspati Shaneshcharo. But it is impossible that Saturn can be in Rohini as well as Vishakha in the same year. It is impossible. Then Jupiter was on retrograde in Shravana, also occulted by Saturn. It means Saturn was even close to Shravana. Magha Swangarako Vakraha Shravane Brihaspati Bhagyam Nakshatram Surya Putrena Pidyate. Then there was another Jupiter cross Rohini, Brihaspati Rohinim Samprapidya Babhuva Chandrarka Samana Varna. The problem is here there are only certain omens, means apashakunas. This Bhishma Parva was actually giving a list of certain bad omens took place before starting of the Mahabharata war. So we should not expect that all these have to be established in the same year. I will just go to the Sanskrit this regular occultation of Rohini, because normally astrologers, they expect that this occultation of Rohini is the most inauspicious or Ashubha. So naturally Mahabharata war might have took place only when Saturn occulted Rohini Shakadabheda. But if you see the Sanskrit, it is saying Pidayan Pidayati. Why he is using, why he can't say only Pidayati, why he is saying Pidayan Pidayati? There is a Panini Sutra, Lakshana Hetvoho Kriyayaha, Shayano Bhunja Yavanaha. When you see the repeated occurrence, because during Mahabharata period, from 3500 to 3000 BC, these 400-500 years, the Rohini has been occulted by Saturn many times, every 30 years almost. So this repeated occurrence has been mentioned, but it is not the reference that Saturn was occulting Rohini in the year of Mahabharata. So that's why we can establish there is no contradiction in the astronomical references in the Mahabharata. So this is extremely important to understand why Pidayan Pidayati has been used. It is only repeated occultation by Saturn. It's not the same year of the Mahabharata war. We have to establish that Saturn occulted Rohini in the year of Mahabharata war. But it is repeatedly occurring this event. That's why this entire period is not auspicious. That's why the Vyasa was warning Dhritarashtra that now you have to rethink about your decision to go for the war. And Vishakha, this is also similarly in Vishakha, Saturn also did retrograde motion as well as the Jupiter also, because Vishakha is the last nakshatra in Libra. Although Saturn is occulted in Libra, but if an exalted planet is in retrograde, is considered debilitated. So certain bad omens are being listed during the conversation between Vyasa and Dhritarashtra. So we should not going for that Saturn or Jupiter must be in Vishakha during the year of Mahabharata war. That's why, because there is a way, it is impossible. Saturn cannot be in both nakshatras in the same year, because the entire motion, Saturn takes 30 years to complete 360-degree motion. Similarly, this is what I have done. I have just before the Mahabharata war, without breaking, in 3166 BCE, Jupiter did retrograde motion in Vishakha, and 3171 BCE, Saturn did retrograde motion in Vishakha. Then Saturn in Purva Phalguni began Bhagyam Nakshatram Akramya. So then there was a retrograde motion in Purva Phalguni by Saturn in 3177 BCE also. So this is how we have to elaborate and explain what are these positions of Saturn, Jupiter in various nakshatras. It is all are actually a retrograde motions in those nakshatras that has been listed to showcase that these are the bad omens have been already been took place. Then there is another shloka. The Mercury was in retrograde in 3 nakshatras before. So in the 3162 BCE, Mercury was in retro. Actually, Mercury goes into retrograde more than once in a year. So it may not be such a strong planetary position evidence, but still, Purva Bhadrapada in January 3162 BC, Pushya May, and Vishakha in September. So in 3 nakshatras, Mercury was in retrograde. There are certain reference of Ketu and Rahu. These were during Mahabharata era. We were not so accurate while calculating the eclipse data. That's why Ketu and Rahu positions can't be verified, because those are assumed positions, not physically observable during Mahabharata era. That's why I'm just ignoring these two things. So now, if you see planetary positions, only Mars, Venus, and the conjunction is clearly verifiable in the year of Mahabharata war. Only this Saturn Jupiter positions, because it has been mentioned many nakshatras. Now we need to do very due diligence, and interpretation also very important. Otherwise, it appears that Mahabharata is there is the astronomical references are not reliable. That kind of an impression we should not give. If we properly analyze the data, it appears that they are related to certain bad omens occurred just before the Mahabharata war. So calendrical astronomy, if we read entire Mahabharata, absolutely there is no ambiguity that Mahabharata is using 5-year Yuga calendar. Because even from Vedas onwards, even go to Atharva Veda, even Yajurveda, all 5 years, I mean, Idvatsara, Idavatsara, Parivatsara, Samvatsara, all names are there in Brahmanas, Aranyakas, and same thing is there in Mahabharata. So from Vedic era to Mahabharata, we were using this 5-year Yuga calendar. So that is Samvatsara Panchayugam Ahoratras Chaturvidham Kala Chakram Cha Yad Divyam Nityam Akshayam Avyayam Anuvatsaram Jata Apite Kuru Sattama Panduputra Virajanta Pancha Samvatsara Iva Tesham Kalatirekhena Jyotisham Cha Vyatikramat Panchame Varshe Dvoma. Every fifth year, the Adhikamasa reference is actually related to Vedanga Jyotisha calendar. So what I have done, I have reconstructed, because we were following that Saptarshi calendar 3176 BC onwards. I have reconstructed this Vedanga Jyotisha calendar to arrive the dates. There is a very, very interesting episode in Mahabharata. When Duryodhana found that the Pandavas were in Viratnagara, then he started claiming that they have not completed 13 years or 1 year Ajnatavasa. They must go back for another 13 years for Vanavasa. Then Bhishma clarifies. तेषाम् अभ्यतिकामासा पंचद्वादशचक्षपात् त्रयोदशानां वर्षाणां मे वर्तते मतिः. Bhishma has calculated actually in Vedanga Jyotisha calendar, starting from 25th February 3175 BC to 14th March 3163 BCE, when they have been caught, the Duryodhana or Kauravas identified the Pandavas living in Viratnagara. So, since they left on 25th February, he was actually expecting in a calendar year, the Duryodhana. He was right in a way. But what Bhishma says, if we calculate from 25th February to 14th March, they have already completed 4,762 days. It means they have done 13 lunar years, 5 lunar months, and 12 nights. So 4,762 days divided by 366. If you see, more than 13 years and another 4-5 days they have extra. They lived in exile. But this was the dispute between what Bhishma is explaining, what Duryodhana says. No, that was not the argument, that they have to complete it, but it will last 1 year. 1 year means at least 360 days they must be in Ajnatavasa, that they did not complete. That was the dispute. So here Bhishma was using the Vedanga Jyotisha calendar to explain it. So based on that, this is the date I have established, and then there is an absolute dating. We can do it. Saptamat Chapi Divada Kartik Amavasya and Jyeshta Nakshatra, the Mahabharata war began on 25th, and various nakshatra. We can easily establish the tithi in the particular. When you can zero in here, you can establish the tithis. Then there is another problem in the Balarama's pilgrimage. It is mentioned Pushyena Samprayatosmi Shravane Punaragata. I have referred to the Nilakantha's Tika. Actually, what happened? All Pandavas after Viratnagara, they have gone to Upaplavya. Sri Krishna comes back and says that there is no other option than war. And he came on Pushya Nakshatra to Upaplavya. On the same day, Balarama left Upaplavya to Dwarka. From Upaplavya, somewhere near Alwar, that area was called Upaplavya. From there, he came back to Dwarka. So that's why on Pushya, he left Upaplavya. And Maitre Nakshatra Yoge Samasahitaha Sarvaya. He left on Maitra, Anuradha Nakshatra. And it is Ashwin Amavasya is very good for taking bath in Prabhas Patan, Somanath. So this has been mentioned in Mahabharata many times. So from Prabhasa Patan, he started his Tirtha Yatra on Maitra Nakshatra Yoga. But since it is talking about Chatvarimsha Dahanya, 42 days, then Pushya to Shravana. So there are certain Pathabedas also. This is one shloka. It appears that there may be copying error in case Kartika Amavasya is the first day or some, but it is only related to the tithis in a particular year. But that has nothing to do with the dating of a Mahabharata war. This is the only evidence within the Mahabharata year. What is the exact date of Mahabharata war may be debatable, but this is nothing to do with the exact year of the Mahabharata war. And I'll just skip because there's hardly into this. Bhishma's demise. What I want to establish that there was a second Pushya Masa in Vedanga Jyotisha. There were two Adhika Masas. One is Ashadha and Pushya. So since it was the fifth year in the Yuga calendar, 3162 BC had a one Pushya Masa in addition. Why? Because it's not exactly from Bhishma was on his fall on 10th day. Thereafter, another 8 days was the war. Thereafter, Pandavas stayed on the banks of Ganga river, and they were doing the penance or some kind of a repenting for the whatever that happened. Thereafter, Yudhishthira was coronated on Pausha Shuklashtami. Then Yudhishthira and Sri Krishna visited Bhishma. That time Bhishma says that the Krishna says that you have a 56 days, because Bhishma wanted to die on just a day after winter solstice, Uttarayana. Now, Uttarayana also, it's not the solar calendar, because Indians from Vedic era onwards, we always followed lunisolar calendar. Our parvas, our festivals are based on lunar calendar. That's why Magha Shukla Saptami has been considered during Mahabharata era as a Ratha Saptami, as a day of Uttarayana, irrespective of the solar in a month, because it may be 11 days early, 11 days later, somewhere it is, but we always, that's why we should not insist that Uttarayana must occur on the day of Magha Shukla Ashtami. In a lunisolar calendar, Ratha Saptami is the Magha Shukla Saptami is the day of Uttarayana. That's why Bhishma left on Magha Shukla Ashtami. Then there are numerous references of Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga already Praptam Kali Yugam Vidhi Upavrittaha Kali Maham Etat Kali Yugam Nama Acharadyat Pravartate. In a way, Mahabharata's internal evidence is indicating that Kali Yuga has already been begun. Okay, then how that is? We need to understand Kali Yuga how in various Siddhantat. Kali Yuga was nothing that like some kind of any geological or some kind of some pralaya or jala pralaya, then only some yuga will begin. No, yuga is nothing, just we have just changed a calendar 2025 to 2026. Similarly, a calendar of Dwaraka has been changed by Kali Yuga calendar, but that differs in various siddhantas. Suppose you are following the 2700 years Saptarshi Chakra, then you can only start any yuga after completion of the 100-year cycle. So in Saptarshi calendar and Magha Shukladi calendar, Kali Yuga has already begun in 3176 BC. And there is another cycle of 60-year cycle, Chaitra Shukladi calendar, especially Brahma Siddhanta of Aryabhata, in which it says that Jupiter must be in Ashwini Nakshatra for Prabhava, because Kali Yuga must start from Prabhava, not from any other year. Because a Siddhanta which follows 60-year cycle, he can only start Kali Yuga from the first year, that is Prabhava. And Jupiter must be in Ashwini Nakshatra, in Aries. But there is another tradition that Prabhava must start when Jupiter is in Dhanishta Nakshatra. That's why those who, especially Vishnu Dharmottara Purana, especially the Bhagavata tradition, they follow the Prabhava year when Jupiter was in Dhanishta Nakshatra. So that 3127 BC. So I told you after 35 years, 36th year was 3127 BC, in which Sri Krishna left this world. So both are correct. If Mahabharata is saying already Kali Yuga began, and when Vishnu Dharmottara Purana and Bhagavata tradition is saying that when Sri Krishna left on the same day Kali Yuga began, both are correct. Both are actually talking about two different Siddhanta calendars. And of course, this Surya Siddhanta, especially Latadeva, he is insisting on Kali Yuga must start from only conjunction. So he started 3101 BC. But there is only 75 years gap in various Siddhantas. Then we can easily understand why somebody is talking about Kali Yuga references. So that I am just skipping Arundhati Vasishtha because that's another issue. But something, if it is visible for 5,000 to 6,000 years, cannot be a bad omen. That's why I'm not talking about it. Now, externally, this is the Asan Magha Sumunaya. This is another issue. There are numerous Vayu Purana, Vishnu Purana, Brihat Samhita, Kali Yuga Raja Vrittanta, Raja Tarangini, It's an Indian traditional reference that when Yudhishthira was ruling, the Saptarshi calendar was in Magha Nakshatra. So this one, I'll just show you. If we start Ashwini onwards from 6777 BC onwards, give every 100 years, 3177 to 3077 is the Magha Nakshatra. How I have worked out is 6777 BCE, we need to refer it to the Surya Siddhanta, because Surya Siddhanta was written when Krita Yuga ended, the 28th Krita Yuga, and he's giving a one very good astronomical reference saying that Asmin Krita Yugasyante sarve madhyagata graha vinato pataman meshado tulyatamitaha. He's talking about 5 planet conjunction when Sun was in first degree of Aries. Okay. What I have done, I have taken 25,000 of even 20,000 BC from today onwards. There is only one date which matches, but how many conjunctions took place when Sun was in first degree of Aries? That is the only one date, that 28 February 6778 BC. Considering this as a sheet anchor, I have reconstructed the Yuga calendar, Indian Yuga calendar. Why? Because from Vedic era to Surya Siddhanta, we were following only 5-year Yuga, 20 Yuga, Chatur Yuga. It was the Mayasura Surya Siddhanta introduced Jovian cycle, 12-year cycle we must follow. Now we started using the 12 multiples. So that's why we have enlarged the Yuga cycle from 5 to 1200 years. Though we continued the 5-year Yuga calendar, but Yuga length we have enlarged to 1200. Now the problem was, once you enlarge the Yuga length, how you are going to count how many years have been elapsed? It was very easy earlier. 5-year Yugas, 20 years, you can easily count how many 5-year cycles have completed. How many 20 years Yugas have been completed. It was easy for one individual's lifetime. But 1200 years, it is not possible. So then what happened? We have introduced Saptarshi Chakra. Every 100 years, we have named after one nakshatra. It is not any astronomical position that Saptarshis reside in every nakshatra. No way Saptarshis will have a 360-degree motion. This is only a trick to remember that how many 100 years have been elapsed. This is how Saptarshi Chakra calendar came into practice after 6777 BC. That's why, and since 27 nakshatras starting from Ashwini, so we can. Thereafter, 1200 became 12,000, then 12,000 was multiplied by 360. So Kali Yuga began 4,32,000. That's why after Mahabharata era, the Kali Yuga became 4,32,000 years. That's why it is not even ending, even after so many thousands of years. So this is how, I'm just skipping it so that, so this is all evidences how we can establish Sri Krishna's name. And then another external evidence is in Puranas, because Vyasa was not only the author of Mahabharata, also the author of Ashtadasha Puranas. In Purana, there are 4 Puranas he is mentioning about Thuban. Alpha Draconis as a pole star. There are, if I give you Sanskrit references, these are all Shishumara, the tail. That is the Thuban. Thuban was pole star only during 3900 to 2000 BC. Any date after 2000 BC cannot be established Thuban as a pole star. Then traditional evidence, it is known, every tradition, if you go Kashmir to Kanyakumari, Southeast Asia onward, even go to Southeast Asian sources, Thailand or even Indonesia or Cambodia tradition also, from there to Afghanistan, every tradition is giving date of 32nd century BC only. Except one Kalhana's Rajatarangdi, same Kalhana also said Bharatam Dwaparante Bhut. But he says probably 600 and some years, so it gives 2400. That is only due to error in chronology. That this is only one exception. Otherwise, entire Indian tradition from from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, everybody is talking about the date of Mahabharata in 32nd century BC. There is a Kalidasa's Jyotirvadabharanam saying that Yudhishthira era was used for 3043 years and thereafter it has been abandoned and we started using Kali Yuga era. And traditional dating is Kalidasa was during the Vikramaditya 57 BCE. If you add 3043, you will somewhere land in the 32nd century BC only. There is a Kutuhala Manjari. There is giving a date in Yudhishthira era. So there are numerous inscriptions. Since time is very short, so I'm just skipping all these inscriptions, where you can even establish that Janamejaya inscriptions are not forgery. If you see, these have been written in Devanagari, very early Nagari, but these copper plates have been reissued. And the date and the solar eclipse, if you calculate it, that solar eclipse really occurred and was visible in India. And I'm just giving one another related one grant of Harihara. He is saying that Dharmaraja Kritam Dana Shasanam Dwapare Vibhu Parikshya Bahudha Jiranam Dharmesha Sadanam Punaha. It is actually Harihara, Vijayanagara king. He has gone to one temple, Dharmeshwara temple, and he has seen some very old records. Then he found that for this temple, Dharmaraja Yudhishthira has given this grant. That's why he has again reissued it. So these are all reissued grant, not somebody has forged it. We are not forgers, okay? We are not fraudsters. The way the archaeologists and epigraphists have rejected more than hundreds of inscriptions saying that these are all forgeries. But nowhere in the world, not a single inscription forged. Only forged inscriptions are found in India. That is only due to inconsistencies in the chronology. We are unable to explain. It is easy to reject data instead of reviewing the model. If there is something wrong in the model, we have to review the model instead of rejecting the data. But modern historians do the selective acceptance, selective rejection to just not to review the model, because reviewing the model leads to a huge homework, because chronology is the big jigsaw puzzle. You can't change few pieces here and there. If you do it entire jigsaw puzzle, you have disturbed. Now onus is on you to re-establish entire jigsaw puzzle. This is the Aihole inscription. I'll just skip it. Even Nidhanpur inscription, Bhaskara Varman, he is talking about, he is a descendant of Bhagadatta of Mahabharata era, and he is saying that his ancestors ruled more than 3000 years. So he is also giving the date beyond 3000 BC. So many inscriptions like Chalukya also claiming that they're the descendant of Janamejaya. They're giving entire genealogy starting from Janamejaya. Kakatiyas also trace their own, the Warangal in Telangana. They also claim they are the descendants of Janamejaya. Tomara history is well known that they are they were the descendants of Janamejaya. And Udayana kings of Kaushambi, because once Hastinapura was destroyed in floods, then they shifted to Kaushambi, and Kaushambi became the capital of Pandavas. Chronological continuity. This is the massive problem in the chronology. I have mentioned that there is a serious error in dating of Buddha, 1381 years, because modern historian date 563 to 483 BC. It's a different problem, so I will not go into. I'll just give. There are three errors. There were actually two Shakairas. One is the ancient Shaka, and second is Shakanta, that is 78 AD. We started last 200-300 years, just 78 AD only as a Shakaira, and every literary reference, every inscription which referred to Shaka, we thought it is only 78 AD. It's not true. With that, so many inscriptions and so many literary references are getting rejected as a forgery, and even entire Jyotirvida Bharanam became as a fraud. Why? Because the Kalidasa is giving the date 3068 as a Kali Yuga era. It means 33 BC. Then we said rejected. How can? Because same Kalidasa is referring to 425 Shakaira in his Jyotirvida Bharanam. Then 78 AD plus 425 can't be 33 BC. If there was an ancient Shaka 583 BC, then same Kalidasa who was living in 57 BC around, he can refer it to Shakaira as well as Kali Yuga 3068 both. So this is the one problem that led to 661 years chronological blunder. Then Buddha and Mahavira were not contemporaries. They both became contemporary because the Bhadrabahu's disciple Chandragupta was not Chandragupta Maurya. He was just a Gupta king of Malava Gupta king of Ujjain. But erroneously, Jain historians claimed that Chandragupta is a Maurya, because Chandragupta Maurya was very famous in India. So that mistaken identification led to Buddha and Mahavira became contemporaries. There is another problem in the entire world chronology, how we have to reconcile that. I have done in my new book, that Chronology and Origins of Indo-European Religion, that entire world chronology has been reconciled considering the first AD as a sheet anchor. That is a mistake. So this needs to, that entire world chronology needs a review, because the problem is we can't, the Indian chronology or Indian traditional chronology became wrong once Alexander entered into Indian chronology. So first we need to arrive at an independent chronology of India and Greek chronology. Later we have to reconcile the so-called Sandrocotus. The identity of Sandrocotus can only be established once Indian chronology and Greek chronology can be independently correctly established. Thereafter we have to see who is contemporary of the era. So this is how we can reconcile the entire Indian traditional chronology. There are certain other issues, like in Mahabharata, they're talking about Saraswati as well as Vinashana. Generally, archaeologists say that after 1900 BC only the Saraswati lost. That's why Mahabharata has to be dated after 1900 BC, because Mahabharata is referring to Vinashana. So we need to understand first this, there are the Saraswati River, the paleo channels. This was the ancient course, which was actually southwest direction. Starting from Kurukshetra, Hisar, then Pushkar, then it coming to Badmer and coming to somewhere closer to Gujarat. Even there is a reference, there is a Sangam of Saraswati, Kapila, Hiranya, close to Somnath. So during Vedic era, Saraswati used to flow in southwest direction. But that was lost in sands somewhere in close to Churu. There is a village called Uchana in Haryana. That Uchana was Vinashana. This was the Vedic Saraswati river. But later Saraswati shifted westwards due to tectonic activities and others. This Gaggar Hakra channel, this was actually post-Vedic Saraswati course. This was the reason why Balarama started from Prabhas Patan. Then I'll just show you. These are the oldest streams have been mapped by the Dr. Amalkar in his research paper in 2020. The black he has given the former stream, oldest stream was actually from Churu, Pushkar, Jodhpur. Somewhere it is following towards a little run of Kutch, or even somewhere in the Gujarat. So this was the oldest stream. This Saraswati was actually the mother of Vedanam Mataram. In Mahabharata is talking about Saraswati as a mother of Vedas. All Vedic mantras were written on the banks of this Saraswati river, not the Gaggar Hakra. So that's why what Mahabharata is referring, it is talking about one Suprabha channel, which was very close to Pushkar. And Oghavati. So if I see that's how Balarama traveled, starting from Prabhasa Patan, he is coming to Chamasodbheda. Chamasodbheda, as per my what I have, it is actually Mehsana, where even one small Saraswati is visible. It means it's only a lake, which generally called it as the Saraswati waters. So during Mahabharata time, since this was dried up before Mahabharata, during Vedic era itself, he is actually traveling same Vedic Saraswati river as a Tirtha Yatra. Chamasodbheda, he has seen only some very small waters of Saraswati. Then Udapana was the place where Saraswati was flowing underground only, it was not even with it. Then he came to Haryana, Uchana, Vinashana. After that, he is actually traveling on the banks of Saraswati river. So Saraswati river was only up to Kurukshetra. It used to flow from Badrinath to Kurukshetra via Prithudaka. Then it started flowing towards westwards after Kurukshetra. And it is clearly mentioned in Saraswati Satra Yajna. Earlier, Saraswati had the east-west courses, east-west banks. But now you have to do in southern bank. Why? Because now Saraswati started flowing westwards. Now you have only southern bank facing the Vinashana. So these are the tirthas after Vinashana. The Balarama went Subhumika, Gandharva Tirtha, Gargasrota. Then he comes to Pehova also, Ushangu, Prithudaka Tirtha. Thereafter he goes to Baka Ashrama. Then he goes to Saraswata Muni Tirtha. Mahabharata says that Vyasa only Saraswati, the Vyasa Gufa, where Mana village, the Saraswati stream, even today is visible. There, after that, he returns back and comes back to Karapachava, that is actually Jagadhri near Yamunanagar. Then, because Karapachava is a place where you have to do the Avabhrita Snana in Yamuna. Then he came back to Kurukshetra. This was the route he traveled. He followed only Vedic Saraswati river course. Gaggar Hakra course was not Vedic Saraswati course. Then submergence of what is there is Barkal crater. This event took place before 3000 BC as per the studies. This Barkal crater caused a tsunami that led to submergence of Dwarka. And this one tablet giving a kind of a comet hit kind of event. And some astronomers have studied this tablet and dated somewhere June 3122 BC, exactly after the Sri Krishna's Nidhana. Within 3-4 years, this event took place. So naturally, the Dwarka got suddenly submerged due to the big tsunami. So that's why what I'm establishing that the archaeoastronomical study, it establishes that Mahabharata text is consistent as far as astronomical information is concerned. There is no contradictions in that one. Even though they just blame that we simply rewrite everything. No. We have only, if you see entire Mahabharata, most of the Akhyana they were to Adi Parva. Some historical stories have been added to just to elaborate it, not to meddle with the main story written by Vyasa. That's why Mahabharata is original text. Only certain editions have been done. Those only Akhyanas have been added, not simply story. स्टोरी के साथ किसी ने कोई छेड़छाड़ नहीं की. तो हमें कभी ये एक्सेप्ट ही नहीं करना चाहिए कि हम कुछ भी लिखते रहते. तो ये जो कहा जाता कि हम लोगों ने कुछ भी लिखा है, वी आर the Sanskrit text, especially the blame game is that Sanskrit texts are not reliable because many times have been written and some people have edited. So we are unable to establish the authenticity of every shloka. That is totally incorrect because the astronomical references in all texts from Vedas to Brahmanas, Aranyakas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, they are consistent. No one has met. Only some addition due to their misunderstanding, because even today we edit certain texts and publish. Sometimes the editor gives his opinion. Sometimes we change some Sanskrit words also here. So these only some copyist assumptions or errors. But no one has meddled with the original text at all. So the veracity of historical text also we can establish. Even archaeological evidence also, the OCP culture, if we can establish that one, then we can clearly establish the true chronology of India. Especially now only multidisciplinary study is the only future. If you read that one, John Blintcliffe, he wrote a book called The Death of Archaeological Theory. He mentions, I would like to pre-archaeologists or or those who preach that a single approach or model is right to the exclusion of all others, who tell them what to think and what not to think. Better surely to fill your brains with all the possible models and methods for your research case study, then search for the fit between idea and patterns in past material culture in a more intuitive way. Next, lay out the way things now appear to make sense, but explicitly as Clarke demanded. So there is another statement by the Clarke. He says, archaeology is an undisciplined empirical discipline, discipline lacking, a scheme, lacking a scheme of systematic and ordered study based upon declared and clearly defined models and rules of procedure. It further lacks a body of central theory capable of synthesizing the general regularities within its data in such a way that the unique residual distinguishing each particular case might be quickly isolated and easily assessed. So what I'm going to say that just if you have not found any material evidence, means the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. A multidisciplinary study is the most, especially archaeoastronomy, because Indians were well advanced in astronomy since Vedic era to till date. It is impossible that we can write any unscientific or irrational astronomical references in our text. So all Sanskrit scholars and the Vedic scholars must work on archaeoastronomy with very precise methodology so that we can establish the authenticity of our traditions, and we need to reconstruct Yuga calendar from Vedic era to till Mahabharata era to prove that 7th Manvantara and 27th or 28th Chaturyuga is not just a figment of imagination. It was a calendar. Earlier, it was a 5-year, 20-year Chaturyuga and 1000-year Mahayuga. Later, these yugas have been enlarged for calendrical astronomy, for accuracy in calendrical astronomy. Later, during Gupta era, we started imagining that these lakhs of years are actually our history. Then we had no other option to tell that Sri Rama ruled for 11,000 years. This is finally, we lost our chronology. That's why we could not establish our historicity or even Ramayana Mahabharata till date. हमने भगवान राम का मंदिर तो बना लिया, बट राम को इतिहास के रूप में हम आज तक पढ़ा नहीं पा रहे हैं. वो हमारी सबसे बड़ी कमी है. उसके लिए हमें आगे बढ़ना. धन्यवाद.
So thank you very much, and extremely we are delighted that you have presented your views about the Mahabharata war and dating about the Mahabharata war, and definitely you have told about the 8 types of pariksha, basically 8 types of tests there. Eclipse, second is planetary positions, third is calendrical astronomy, fourth is external literary evidence, fifth Saptarshit cycle calendar, epigraphy test, chronological continuity test, archaeological and multidisciplinary evidence. And definitely, these tests very much clear that this is the history,
Yes.
what the era it was, what the timing that was, and you have done a tremendous job about to establish your view about the dating of Mahabharata war. So we are very much thankful, and we are very much appreciate your knowledge about the Sanskrit also, and
Thank you.
you are doing your job, different type of job, but you are doing your uh, passion, you are following your passion about the Sanskrit also. And I have just heard that you have done your MA master's degree in Sanskrit also from Hindi,
Yes,
from
yes.
Delhi, your
Delhi
Hindu
University.
college. Yes, sir. So very, very much thankful about your this type of knowledge as well as your contribution to dating the Mahabharata war. You can see that there are many questions, many raised hands. So
Okay.
definitely we will come to you all, also. But my one request is very much important because we have constant timing, so we
Yeah.
will put short questions, not
Yeah.
long discussions, and we will try to accommodate you all with the speaker. So first of all, Lalan Prasad ji is there, and the
Yeah.
question is, what is the latest carbon dating finding of Chalukya's Shilalik about the Mahabharat war?
No, there is Shila Lekhas can't be carbon dated because only organic material can be carbon dated. The rocks cannot be, even metal cannot be carbon dated. So the if you see that Aihole inscription, even you go to the same place, the somewhere in the southern Karnataka, northern Karnataka, you can see that inscription in the temple. But the inscription cannot be carbon dated. You can't do the carbon dating on every other than organic material. First, second, there is a date is written there in that one, in that inscription. And there are more than 1,000 inscriptions use Kali Yuga as the referring Samvat or an era has been used traditionally in our literature as well as the inscriptions. So we need not to insist on carbon dating, then only I will say that whether we existed. Even we'll go to your village, we'll try to find out. Nothing has been more than 100 years. That does not mean that you never existed before 100 years. So carbon dating or other archaeological is only supporting evidence, can't be a primary evidence.
Okay, thank you, sir.
No.
And next is Sachin Agrawal ji. Please ask your question.
Namaste, Vedveer ji. Thank you for a nice presentation.
Namaste.
We keep talking, but only one small point. You have covered that in 19th slide number or 19th point, but little more clarity for myself and others. Where the Kali era, what we take and we date all our inscriptions or the sheet anchor date is 3101 or 3102 BCE, and which is also associated with death of Krishna and the coronation of King Parikshit. So with that and the other concepts of 60-year cycle, Jovian cycle, etc. of Kali has begun. How do we reconcile this? How come the traditional Puranic chronology take 3101 and not 3126 as the death of Krishna, or 223 as the death of Krishna? That is one small point.
Yes. Since after Varahamihira and 1st century BC afterward, we started using Latadeva Suri Siddhanta. Prior to that, we did not use this era. We only followed Yudhishthira Samvat. That's why Kalidasa is writing that. What we started assuming that Puranas don't give date 3101. They just say Kali Yuga or Parikshita Janma. Parikshita Janma and Mahabharata War are the same year. Hardly 1 month, 2 months difference maybe. So they are referring to a Kali Yuga, but they never have 3101. 3101 became a model for us because we started after 78 AD onwards. We wanted a perfect calendar. We found that Surya Siddhanta is the best Siddhanta among others. But earlier we had a reluctance because written by Asura. Why should we follow? We have our own Deva tradition. But finally we found that this is the best way. Then we use 1st April 78 AD, Sun, Moon and Jupiter are best conjunction on Chaitra Shukla Pratipada. That's why we used this, and backward we taken 3179 years. So 3101 BCE became a yardstick only after 1st or 2nd century BC. Prior to that, we were using only Yudhishthira Samvat. And Kali Yuga is generally, how can 3101 is not a Prabhava Samvatsara? A Siddhanta which follows 60 years. Then it must follow the Prabhava.
There is one more thing. Then there is some conjunction. There's some conjunction. They say 3102. All the planetary conjunction.
That's why I'm saying you tell me somebody like Kashmir tradition and who are following a Saptarshi calendar. How can he start Kali Yuga in between? He has to wait 100 years. That's why they start 3076 BC as the Laukika Samvat. Means Saptarshi Samvat, they start 3076. Why? Because they can't start in between. They have not taken 301. Prior to that, they are following the Magha Shukladi calendar. Now they have to switch over to Chaitra Shukladi calendar. So that's why the Kali Yuga had not only 3101 is not the only for all Siddhantas. So those who follow 60-year cycle, they must start Prabhava. In the 60 years, all the various Siddhantas, somebody says Prabhava can start only when Jupiter is in Aries. Where the Bhagavata tradition says no, Jupiter must be in Dhanishta for Prabhava. That's why then you tell me when it was 3127 was the Dhanishta. Jupiter was in Dhanishta. So that's why Prabhava Samvatsara started. That from there onward Kali Yuga began. Even lot of we have inscriptions which give this Samvatsara names. They indicate that there are more than 2 or 3 traditions are there, especially counting from Prabhava. So that's why we should not have a fixed mind that 3101 is, but all Siddhantas start in 3176 to 3101. In between only 4-5 years are there. Generally, otherwise the problem is same Mahabharata is saying Praptam Kaliyugam Vidhi. And Purana saying that the day Sri Krishna left, only Kali Yuga began. The both are contradictory. I'm saying no, complementary. The contradictory means your texts are not reliable.
Okay.
So now you have to understand. That's why now Vyakhyanato Vishesha Pratipattir Nahi Sandehad Lakshanam.
All right.
Okay,
Dhanyavad.
thank you, sir. And the next question is from Dr. D. Pramod ji from Hyderabad. They are also here, and I am reading the question they have texted in our message box. So the question is, why should convince Westerners their history started only 2000 years, whereas our is 10,000 years old history? Let them not agree. We will convince ourselves and put in academic books and journals. Their suggestion is also there. So
Yeah,
the question
that's
is, why should we convince Westerners? Is it required or not?
no. The problem is we need not to convince somebody outsiders. First, we need to convince in our own house also. So that's why the debate is there. We are not debating to convince some Westerners or others. The problem is we have various divergence of opinions and others. And since the tragedy is in especially chronological studies, the historians, archaeologists rarely know Sanskrit. And Sanskrit guy is traditionally trained, though he had hardly any idea of how modern multidisciplinary studies are being happening. So this is the reason the historians, the so-called historians, they zero knowledge of Sanskrit and they're writing about history. It means only they are only cheerleaders of the colonial writings. They are elaborating in a different way or some way politicizing as per the new political ideas. But hardly any. You tell me what Romila Thapar has contributed as an Indian history. Nothing. She just elaborated in a different way, different only leftist ideology and other infused into the textbooks or in her whatever the history books. The real story is we had no doubt about her history before the arrival of the British historian. This doubt again because there is an inconsistency. Like we say, Adi Shankaracharya is 6th century BC. If Adi Shankaracharya was 6th century BC, then Buddha has to be 1300 years before. And our Puranic tradition says that Mahapadmananda can only be dated from Mahabharata year to 1500 years. It means Buddha has to be dated 250 years before Nandas. So our tradition is very clear, starting from 32nd century BCE, 1800 or 1900 BC was the century in which Buddha lived. But why 563 BC? Because we goofed up 661 years clubbing the two Shakaira. And then we identified Buddha and Mahavira the contemporaries. So though there was a gap of 700 years between Mahavira and Buddha.
Yeah.
So this is how 1380 years got lost. Not only that, once correcting the Buddha means, you need to correct Sri Lankan history also because they start their entire chronology from Buddha Nirvana, then Burma, then Tibet, then naturally it affects China, then it comes to the Persia, the entire world chronology. So the problem is we are running away from the hard work. ये सब क्यों करना छोड़ो जो चल रहा because
This is the
the
problem.
chronology I know that problem is that we need to actually work next 2-3 decades very hard and then establish all I have done it almost 90% of that whatever is required. Even world chronology there are errors. We are actually assuming world chronology, Western chronology it's perfect and started reconciling our own chronology. Then we are unable to reconcile it. The biggest problem is this 661 years because Gupta we are dating 320 in modern history books, but traditionally they have to be dated 334 BC. If so, then Sasanians also to be dated in 334 BC, not 320. Due to that, Achaemenid dating will change. Due to change in the Achaemenids, that goes to even change in the Alexander date.
I agree with you, sir. I agree with you that the whole script nicely explained this thing. My question is that we should not convince foreigners. There's no point at all.
Not required, but we must start. In all universities, I'm seeing there are numerous
we should
departments.
depend our own culture. We should depend our own timings and everything.
Yes.
Because the foreigners, a lot of people will publish it and they take the advantage from us. They're publishing themselves.
But I request the waves that at least few universities should start a department of chronology That is the fundamental science behind the history, linguistics. We need to change linguistics also. They're showing Sanskrit as the granddaughter, actually great grandmother को आपने जो है दादी को पोती बना दिया. Now you are studying entire linguistics. So the mother-child relationship, historical linguistics also must be changed based on the whatever the chronological study we can establish.
Interdisciplinary
Yes, sir,
research is what, because
definitely,
nowadays
definitely.
physics and chemistry people also required to understand the Sanskrit, and Sanskrit people do not know physics and chemistry.
Yes.
So all to be together, we can make it success in this one.
Yes, that's why there is a greater responsibility on the Sanskrit scholar to become a multidisciplinary expert rather than only limiting themselves to the Sanskrit studies.
Thank you, sir. Nicely explained.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot. And the next question is from Rajkumar Jalanji. And the question is, there are similar confusions about dating of Ramayana and Vedas also. Please provide similar insights about these also so that all confusions can be set at rest.
One thing what I have given based on the Surya Siddhanta, we can perfectly reconstruct the Yuga calendar. The end of Krita Yuga gives the beginning of Treta Yuga. So last century of the Treta Yuga, it means there was a gap of 2,400 years between Mahabharata to Ramayana Yuga. So that goes back to 5,600 BC. Okay, and sea level studies also indicate that Sri Lanka was not even an island. Sri Lanka was not a Dvipa beyond 6,000 or 6,500 BC. You can easily walk into Sri Lanka because it was part of Tamil Nadu. That became when sea level rose. So that time only the land filling has been done to construct that so-called Ramasetu or Nalasetu. Later that washed out because only land filling was there. So that was the timeline. And Vedic timelines, we can do it. This is the very, the way we have done very extensively the archaeoastronomical study of Mahabharata. Similarly, we have to do Brahmana, Aranyaka. I have found two irrefutable evidence. Chaturmasyani prayunjanaha Phalgunyam Purnimasyam Agnyam Adadi. तो चातुर्मास्य में फाल्गुन मास, आप बताइए चातुर्मास्य सीजनल है, ऐसा नहीं है कि आप शीत ऋतु में चातुर्मास्य करेंगे या वसंत ऋतु में चातुर्मास. तो चातुर्मास्य में फाल्गुन मास है और उसमें विषुवत की बात कर रहे हैं. विषुवान इज इक्विनॉक्स, वो शरद इक्विनॉक्स है. जीवेम शरद शतम पश्येम शरद शत. एंटायर Vedic literature or post Vedic literature is Sharad as synonymous to the year. It means we used to follow Sharad Ritu calendar, Sharad Ritu to Sharad Ritu. So Falguna Masa as the first month of Sharad Ritu, it goes back to 11,300 BC. So even Kritika Nakshatra Sukta in Atharva Veda, if you are dating only vernal equinox, this is 2200 BC. Even after Mahabharata era, Atharva Veda was written. It's not correct because Atharva reference in Ramayana and Mahabharata. Then you have to only go back that it is actually winter solstice in Kritika, because the 360-degree division, we started basic trigonometry at the time of Rigveda and Atharva Veda itself. So it was very easy to how to find out 0 degree, because after winter, so sun becomes stationary. So it was easy to identify that as the 0 degree. Equinox was not so, we were not so skilled to identify the equinox to have a 360 degree. But for nakshatra division, we use winter solstice. That's why if you see Orion, winter solstice in Mrigashira, 11,200 BC. Same winter so in Rohini, 10,200. Then Kritika, then Ashwini comes 7,322 BC. Then we start, why to change everything? Let's go to Nirayana calendar, because we thought it's a trepidation. From Mrigashira to Ashwini to it's a trepidation. That's was an illusion. But we had an idea of there is a Sampata precession, but we thought it's a trepidationial motion. But again, after Mahabharata era, when we reached around 100 AD, then we found that it's not going, it is actually coming backwards. Then Munjala said Ayana Chalan. So our Vedas were written somewhere 11,500 to 10,500 BC, and Avesta was the Asura Veda. We have numerous references of Asura Veda, and Asura Veda was recompiled as an Avesta, and that Avesta is referring, it is a lot of Sanskrit words, and it is referring to younger Drayas, mini ice age. They are saying that these devas have created this winter because the Takshaka was called as the Dahak in Avesta. He defeated that Jamshed. Thereafter, they started experiencing 10 months winter, even 2 months summer. That is also too cold, is actually a reference to younger Drayas. And scientifically established date for younger Drayas is 10,700 to 9,700 BC. During this younger Drayas only, entire Saraswati ecosystem was disturbed. Then we have re-established, so that's why the all Veda, Brahmanat, Aranyakat have been compiled only Kritika period. So this is the history we need to reconstruct. Then this I have done in my books, especially the Manu to Mahabharata, how to start. Even Ashwini Nakshatras are referring to Sharad equinox in Ashwini. Sharad equinox in Ashwini was 13,300 BC. From there onwards, if you see every Mahayuga, 1,000 years. Devaha vai sahasra samvatsaraya didikshire. There are numerous references of Sahasra Samvatsara cycles in Veda. Nowhere in Vedas, Brahmanas, Aranyakas is referring to lakhs of years or crores of years. Nowhere. They're only talking about Sahasra Samvatsara cycles. So the 6,000 years elapsed from 13,300 to 7,300 BC. Thereafter, Surya Siddhanta actually revolutionized. From there, Siddhanta Jyotisha starts. Then we said this 5-year, 20-year is not easy because even you have to use 12 as the your infinitesimal, your basic. Then you needed 12 multiple. 1,000 cannot 12 multiple. Then we made 1,200. Then after Mahabharata era, we thought 1,200 is also small to correct the error because we are dealing with the fractions. When you are dealing with the fractions, you have to take a bigger number to have an accurate values in integers. So that's why 12,000 कर दिया. उससे 2,400 years का द्वापर युग हो गया. Thereafter, we started that no, we need even bigger number. We 12,000 multiplied by 360. That led to 43 lakhs 20,000 years चतुर्युग. उसके बाद प्रॉब्लम हो गया. तो then history is very small and chronology became too big. Then we started imagining that Rama lived 11,000 years. If you divide 11,000 by 360, it's only 31 years his reign. So this is how we need to reconstruct the chronology. It happens when you worship some historical person, mythological exaggeration, poetic exaggerations. We have to have a Nirakshira Viveka to separate history from mythological exaggerations. Then we can easily establish there is all legends, mythological legends were once upon a historical story. Only later we have exaggerated. So we need to establish the timeline. Then we can easily write a narrative also, because we need to have a narrative also, a storyline from Vedic era to till date.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot, sir. Shashi Tiwari ma'am is there, and already we have running out of time basically. So we are delayed basically 12 minutes because we have to conclude this whole webinar at 10 p.m. There are two more raised hands, but Shashi Tiwari ma'am, we should go for questions or we should go for the concluding remarks.
Answer and question should be brief as you have told in the very beginning.
There are only two more raised hands are there. Vivek Gargji is there and Gopalji is there. Vivek ji, do you want to ask any question?
Yes, sir. I've just a very short question I want to ask. That
Okay.
the Vedveer Aryaji has given a long chronology. Thank you for that. And he knows me and I know him very well. I just want to ask Vedveer Aryaji, sir, where it is possible that Indian Council of Historical Research is going to update this chronological dates in the coming years. What is the methodology for that? And how to convince our sampradayas, our Indology groups, our government and our institutions, what is the methodology to talk to them? What is we have to bring the conferences? What kind of the platform we have to use to convince each and everyone who are in the home, means who are belongs to this endology ideology? And secondly, is there any medium to do the research, secondary research, what you have done till yet, and what is the scope of the further research in this field? And
So there are
as you have
no,
said that you have
yeah,
done the
yeah, yeah.
90% of the
Yeah,
work.
understood. I understood. There are no shortcuts. There is no alternative to hard work. The real problem is we are till date unable to produce books or some kind of a research papers which stand with the modern scrutiny of modern academia. So we have to work hard and bring a literature and books which can withstand modern scrutiny. Okay. First, that one. Second, we keep working hard to engage for dialogue with everywhere. And then, of course, conferences, all others. I can't say when present ruling government or the other government institution, how they are going to take it up. The real problem is chronology. If you are going to, any date you are going to revising, then it is going to change the chronology of almost entire world. So nobody wants to touch that. So that's why there is a greater responsibility on to we have to work hard to let it happen. At least we have to say that Mahabharata and Ramayana are our history. And parallelly, we must start a course on it in various universities. Indian historical tradition or in a other name, so that at least whatever the research has been happened, that should be taught in universities and other colleges. Apart from the let history department keep teaching their texts written by leftists and others, but at least either Sanskrit departments or a department of chronology must start the modern entire multidisciplinary research so that there will be a dialogue. The problem is, even after 11 and 12 years of this government, the leftists are say that your government also teaching Mehboob, why should I engage you for a dialogue? Because there is hardly any scholars in the government or in ICHR. They may be in the ICHR. They're only getting, I know government very well. They every day they get budget. They have to somewhere to spend the money. That is the first priority. So that's why last 11 years, what in ICHR has done did nothing. Not even they had even not a courage to have this kind of a conference on Mahabharata. Whether they had even a one conference, no. So it is the very easy to be a status quoism in government because you have to only spend the money and show, because your accountability is only for spending the money, not for the outcomes. So that is the tragedy. But still, we need to work hard and create world-class literature related to Indian history and chronology that will withstand the modern scrutiny in every academy. So that is the first priority. So that first we need to keep on working on that. I know it's always we become selfish that when I will see in my own lifetime. But that may be, yes, I wish that at least the chronology should be corrected before within our lifetime. But still, let's working on Charai Veti. But hard work, there is no alternative to hard work.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the last question is from Gopal ji. Gopal.
Greetings to you, Dr. Shashi Tiwari, madam. A quick question. Thank you for the insightful talk, Dr. Arya.
Thank you.
Twice, Lord Sri Krishna has brought out his Sudarshan Chakra. And the second time, it was a near eclipse condition simulated by him. So many scholars whom I worked with over the last 25 years opine that the concerned person who is really trying to work out on the timelines will get a skewed result. There is a degree of inevitability on the way each individual concludes this is the time. Your opinion?
No, that's fine. We have devised that Ashta Pariksha, that 8 tests and others, the archaeoastronomy, how we need, because there are no standards. Everybody is taking one particular event, like 3101 is the year. It is very easy today. This is the day Sri Krishna left the world. So you just go back to 36 years, your problem is solved, but you are unable to establish any eclipse data and others. Similarly, somebody says that in Mahabharata year, the Rohini must occult Saturn must occult the Rohini. Now every 30 years only that year occurs. Then when you find out, then either it violates the Kali Yuga date or it violates other parameters. So instead of that, let us follow the the traditional dating. That's why I used only the eye-hole inscription under to zero in the what is the actual year. Then started internal astronomy also. That time I found that tradition completely converges with the internal evidence. Then that becomes the best methodology. So we need to keep correcting, but we need to engage with each other with the humility. The problem is the Jalpa takes over the Samvada. That is the biggest problem whenever we start debating. So we have to come out of our personal egos and saying that we have to have a Samvada because our objective is the same. But our egos are becoming bigger than our objectives. That is the problem. So that we need to address, then we can easily establish the methodology as well as a particular date. And because the astronomy, everything, Mahabharata date cannot have only one date, finally. So that we can easily find out if we work out a proper methodology. That's why archaeoastronomy, this science must have certain standards and one more problem within the Sanskrit. I can interpret or I can translate it as per my convenience also. This problem actually we need to avoid, stating that only that interpretation which converges all other evidences can only be taken as an evidence. Otherwise, it is the biggest problem, this translation. Everybody translates their own way and keeps propagating in social media. Then it becomes that if you can get more followers, you are a bigger scholar. This is a new problem nowadays. So, so it's that's why a proper the interpretations also must matter. So some system we have to bring in, some regulatory system that somebody is not just misinterpreting or mistranslating the Sanskrit text also.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your answering all the questions. And I would like to invite now our Professor Shashi Tiwari ma'am, who is President of Waves India. And please, ma'am, we inviting you for the concluding remarks as well as vote of thanks.
Thank you, Ashutosh. And namaskar to all and everyone. I am audible. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Thank you. So we were listening to a great talk by Dr. Vedveer Ariji. And it is our pleasure that Veers also, he has visited Waves programs. He was attending those programs. So we know that from the many years he is working on chronology. Side by side, Sanskrit texts. He is a Sanskritist, so Sanskrit texts are his main concern. And I know that traditionally also from the childhood he used to study Sanskrit. So Sanskrit is no problem for him. And the topic here was to be discussed, the date of Mahabharat war. And importantly, war is very important because Mahabharat is the name of the war also, and it is the name of the book also, that epic also called Mahabharata. And now as a joke we can use Mahabharat mat karo. So it is a very well-known war and event of our history. So that is the reason we selected this topic, because if we will decide about the date of the Mahabharat book, then it will not be possible. As in other Sanskrit texts, we find this is a major difficulty. But in if we want to know about the event was there very much. everyone knows, everyone is very sure that there was an event. Otherwise, Kurukshetra is here in India, and other places are also Hastinapur, Indraprastha, and Panchakula. So places are here. People recall as their ancestors. Kaurava, Pandava were the ancestors. So date of the war should be decided. It is opinion of every scholar attending this program. And especially when we will know the date of the Kurukshetra war, then only we can know the date of other texts also, which is a problem. As here is a major issue we were discussing was that what is the problem in drawing about the chronology and why Sanskrit texts are defined according to their own, and why historians cannot give the correct history on the basis of the literature. So I am also of this opinion that literary opinions, literary evidences are the most important evidences, and generally they are ignored. They are not taken into care. In as I am a student of Vedas, so I know there are many evidences where dating can be done on the Vedic culture, on the Vedic civilization, Vedic botany, what they were eating, what they were. So everything, if we will know, and if we know, then why we cannot decide the date and the atmosphere and the environment of that time. So this, especially I will praise Dr. Vedvir Ariji because he is very clear speaker, very methodological and very systematic. He used to present everything. So he has especially based this is talk on the evidences which are drawn from the Mahabharata on the basis of astronomy. So he wants to join astronomy and archaeology as this on the basis of these things can be decided, and especially literary evidences. He emphasizes on literary evidences. So the focus was on traditional evidences also, the traditional meaning of the Mahabharata. And the date he has decided is October 25th, 3162 BCE. So this is an important date, and I am very happy to know that war was in October. So it is very correct according to tradition. You know, all these things are there in the epic of Ramayana also. And the month was again the same month when Ramayana war was there. And Vedang Jyotish and literature you have taken other literature also, not only Mahabharata but Ramayana, Vedas, Surya Siddhant, and other Kalidas, Kashmir literature, etc. So all these things were there, and scholars have also contributed their opinion on that. And other thing you were focusing was eclipses, which were before the war, which were after the war, which were in the Bhishma, when Bhishma was laid down, then what was happening? When Sri Krishna went from his dham, then what was happening? So all eclipses are very clearly studied, and he has done a great job in that work, in doing that work. And the other thing I want to say is that Mahabharata also, if we will focus on the book Mahabharata, then everyone should know that Mahabharata is the name given in the third stage. Firstly, it was Jaya, then Bharata, then Mahabharata. And Jayan name is also repeated by Sri Vyas in the every chapter, every Varg Parv of that great book. And that shlok was Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Chaiva Tato Jayam Udire. So this Jay is of 9,900 shlokas. Then Bharat was of 24 shlokas, 1,000 shlokas. And then Mahabharata is generally called 1 lakh shlokas. So it is a very big text, and as Dr. Professor Gopalji has said, it is essentially very important that there will be references, astronomical references. If we study very clearly, we can reach on a definite conclusion. Conclusion should not be based on the imagination. This is my also humble request. Once I read a history book, which is very important, written by very important author, and he has quoted a text from some Brahman, but the meaning was given very wrong. And then in another book of that time, written by another historian, very famous historian, the same quotation was there and the same meaning was there. So maybe in the third book also, in the fourth book also, in the students in the classroom. So this is the way how wrong explanations are done. And as he said that it should be based by on the findings of Sanskrit scholars, and Sanskrit scholars are not doing much effort for that, because they say that Anantam Veda, Anantam Veda. So chronology is a very important thing, but book literary chronology can be done, I think so, and it should be multidisciplinary, as our speaker has also indicated. So all these I will not repeat, really take your much time, and I will close my this short note with the first slok of Gita, where Kurukshetra war is referred. Dharma Kshetre, Kurukshetre, Samveta Yutsa, Mamka Pandavashev, Kim Akurvata Sanjaya. So we are very, we should feel proud that we have such a great scholar among us, and we are very thankful to everyone who participated in this program. Thank you very much, and namaskar to all of you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot for your concluding remarks. And I would like to thank you all for your great webinar. And Vedvir Aryaji, thanks a lot for your kind,
Thank you.
We can say great, amazing talk, because it was really very amazing talk. And I would like, if everyone can on their video and can give a clap to Vedvir Aryaji, is it,
Thank you.
if it
Thank
is
you.
possible.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
great
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for
great
inviting
talk.
me.
And it was really amazing for us, and it was a very clear and specific talk about the dating of the Mahabharata. And definitely we will try to accommodate you again in this webinar in any time if it is possible. And about the waves, we can say something more, that we organize these type of webinars every month, and you can see this talk on YouTube channel, which is Waves YouTube channel, official channel, and it was live
Yeah.
on that YouTube channel also. So anyone if want to see this talk on again and again, they can see that talk on the YouTube channel also. And we are organizing Waves 2026 also in the US, and uh, it will be organized by the Maharshi International University MIU, as well as Hindu Institute of America HUA Florida USA, in collaboration with World Association for Vedic Studies Waves International and Wider Association for Vedic Studies Waves India, and it will organized on 31st July, 1st and 2nd August 2026. So you all are invited in Waves 2026 also, and Waves organize many more activities, and if you want to become a member of Waves International, Waves India, you all are invited for that also. So thank you very much for this talk, and now I would like to conclude this talk uh, with the Shanti mantra. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. सर्वेभ्यो नमो नमः. शुभं भवतु. पुनर्मिलामः.